In my last long campaign, on session 9, an orc named Kadash stepped up into the fray ready to fight his father, who'd been corrupted and twisted by a demonic being within a gem. And while the fight was incredibly tough, it did look as though the party were going to pull through. The mobs were mostly on the ropes, the rest of the party was safe, and Kadash had drawn the ire of his father entirely because of the corruption and the fact that he'd betrayed his orcish roots. Everything was going fine. Until it wasn't. Kadash's father had 3 attacks, and on the first attack hit and damaged Kadash pretty badly. On the second hit, knocked him down to 0 health. And on the third hit, because the third hit had to go at Kadash, why would it go to anyone else? Gave him 2 death saving throw failures, as is the way that works. Next up in the initiative, though, was Kadash himself, and as the only healer in the party, how he rolled was entirely dictate how the rest of the fight would go, or certainly the rest of Kadash's life would go. And the dice decided that Kadash would be no more. He failed that final death saving throw. It was an incredibly quick thing, going from 1 attack straight into a death save. And the story was so much better for it, and for a lot of good reasons. It helped that playing online, the player himself described Kadash's last moments and how he was feeling and thinking before dropping out of the call for an extra bit of added dramatic flair. And his death was a key turning point for 2 of the players, but also all of the characters. Hello, my name is Jason. This is the Dungeon Himbo, as per the rebrand, and here I talk about all things D&D. Sometimes it's builds, sometimes it's reviews, preferably of third-party products, but I'll take what I can get. And recently is also DM advice and player advice, and I promise it's not always going to be about traumatizing your players, but it might be about that sometimes, so have fun with that. Today, though, I am entirely here to tell you why you should, in fact, not worry about killing off your player characters, because it is good, actually, for a plethora of reasons, 3 of which I am going to talk about today. Killing off player characters adds a few things. Stakes, which are essential in any game, realism, which is essential for a TTRPG, and some of the best incentives for both roleplay and character growth that you're going to have from anything else in the game. Sure, your players will have to grieve the character that they've come to love, but it's good for them, probably. So let's get into the main things, shall we? Stakes! That's stupid. We'll see if that makes it in. This is probably the biggest reason for me thinking it's integral, because for any of the combat in your game to really have relevance, there has to be a loss condition. And while I do appreciate that there are plenty of other losing things that you can implement, losing things, goodness me. While there are plenty of other ways in which the party can lose, and stakes of things that they can lose, such as other characters, whether NPCs or otherwise, potentially falling, maybe getting imprisoned, failure states, that was the word I was looking for. I don't think any of them come close to how impactful a player character death is. Even in a heroic fantasy, there is loss in nearly every story that we have told over the millennia that human beings have existed. Stories and loss and the heroism that follows them, these things are integral to everything that makes us human beings and everything that gives us hope to push past things when they get bad. God, this has gone deep, isn't it? The fact that you can find success after failure is important, I think, in everything. It's integral to understand that in life, and I think having that in our stories is important. And while I appreciate D&D as escapism for some and for all of us, I'm not actually any of the things I play as. Plot twist. I think the added stakes that a player character death and the fact that it exists are absolutely essential. The moment where Kadash fell, the game completely changed for the 2 new players in the campaign, and even the 2 veteran players. They've been playing for a long time. They're a part of my core D&D group, and none of them had lost a character in a longer campaign before. I have a reputation in my little group for being good at it. Good at accidentally finishing off characters or purposely finishing off characters. It's really up to the dice, I'd just like to point out. And from the moment they understood that player character death was a very real and very present thing that could occur to their characters and to the characters that they'd started to love, basically, as a party, everyone suddenly started taking the combat a lot more seriously. Gone were some of the silly decisions, not all of them. The rogue was a menace, and I love him for it. But the mood changed in a remarkable way, and I know that isn't going to be for everyone. And obviously, if you don't want this, then don't do this. But if you're on the fence, doing this will completely change the way your players approach every single scenario. Understanding that every fight could be their last will make them take the game a lot more seriously. And if that is something you want to do, and you play in a crunchy way, at least combat-wise, which I do, thanks to Tailspire being the VTT of choice and having full 3D modeling of all the maps and measurements and everything else, makes it very easy to do this. It just makes your players think a little more carefully about what they're doing and how they approach things. Plus, if there's no chance of loss of the character, then nothing the character does from a heroic standpoint matters. If they're always going to come out the other side okay, then there is no self-sacrifice, and without self-sacrifice, I don't think there's much heroism. Realism. It's so stupid, I have to keep it in. Death is, sadly, a part of life, one many of us come to terms with, probably earlier than we'd like to. For the vast majority of us. I don't know how many people are happy to greet it when it comes. And while in life we do not have threats such as dragons or Tarrasques or even zombies, at least not ones which are not insects and mushroom based, or that weird hornet that does it. I'm pretty sure there's a hornet that does it. There's some real horrible parasites out there. Don't Google it if you don't want to know. If your aim is to create a realistic world, one which feels lived in, realistic isn't the right word, but one which feels as though it exists, that it breathes, that it has meaning and is full of life, that good old-fashioned verisimilitude, which is a ridiculous word, which I struggle to pronounce every single time, then you need to have death in the game. And if death is in the game, then you need to have your player characters be at risk of that. This isn't the same as stakes. I realize it's close, and it is close, but it's not the same. There's just nothing that is going to hammer home just how dangerous the world is as much as a player character death will. Realism is something that's always going to matter in any D&D game or any TTRPG, in my opinion, in terms of life and death and all of that good stuff. But especially if you're running something like a hex crawl where survival is, tricky. You cannot have a dangerous world without the threat of death and the danger of the world itself. I'm running a campaign in Chult at the moment, for example, which is full of dinosaurs and zombies. It's not a particularly safe place. And if my players weren't constantly worried about losing their characters, and it is pretty constant, and I know that's not for everyone, but my players know what they're getting into, then it wouldn't feel very dangerous, would it? And there are ways to do that outside of just challenging fights, and I'll probably cover those in a video at some point as well. I like hard D&D, but those losses help make it all feel more immersive, and I think that immersive D&D is good D&D. I don't think that's that much of a hot take. I could be wrong. I'm sure somebody will let me know I'm wrong, but that's why it helps realism. Before we get on to the final point, I just want to give a quick shout out to my channel members, who are all wonderful and all support me, and I just think that's great. Thank you so much. There's also a Discord you can join if you want to talk to me about stuff, and the people in the Discord about stuff. That's how Discord, you know what a Discord is, right? You got this. I believe in you. Great character moments. There we go. I did the last one without laughing. We did it. Kind of took away from it by mentioning it. It's fine. Alongside the change in tone for the players themselves, which is important, I think. It's something I'm quite proud of, actually, making things feel a little more stressful in the combat. I'm a nice person, I promise. Kadash's death also led to the characters themselves grieving the character. And nothing galvanizes a bit of character growth more than loss, unfortunately, in real life and otherwise. Davin, a big old Leonin fighter who did survive to the end of the campaign, was just growing close with Kadash, and the loss of this character, another character he failed to protect in his eyes, could have sent him into an incredibly dark place. And it probably would have done were it not for the fact that Stephen, the guy who had Kadash's character, his next character ended up getting on very, very well with Davin. So they ended up with a whole arc together. In fact, the epilogue had them both journeying across as Venlin's hag mothers. Venlin was a replacement character. Venlin's hag mothers decided to gift Davin with a slower aging process, which unbeknownst to him was a permanent thing because Fey magic, and they got to explore Venlin's origins a bit more themselves in a post-campaign two-shot. I think it was a two-shot, might have been a one-shot. Yeah, it was a two-shot. But none of that would have happened were it not for the fact that Kadash had kicked the bucket in the first place. And it wasn't just that. Sandor, the edgy warlock, had a chance to try to drag everyone back to the path and see if he could make people a little bit worse, as is the want of evil characters. And Lucian, the rogue, also got a chance for a little bit of self-reflection about his medicinal background and how effective it really was. But it's not just that. It's the same in every single campaign where a player character has been finished off. It adds fantastic opportunities for role play, and it's not just for the players either, it's for the DM. In a short 6-session campaign I ran, where there were simply 4 players, one of the player characters fell to some exploding zombies, as you do, and it really helped cement the path the players were on as being one that was incredibly muddled. All 3 of the remaining characters had very mixed views on how it is that they should be approaching things, and it gave me a chance to really taunt them with it later on by having a monster wear the guy's face. I am big into horror monster concepts. I've covered them on the channel before. I think it was the Anathema, I believe, somewhere in the annals of my channel's history. Maybe I'll link to it at the end. It's an older video though. Oof. I don't think I will. Any instance of this is just fuel for everyone involved, whether they are the player or the DM. And you can make of it what you will, but it is a great catalyst for growth. And I am a huge proponent of those. I think they're incredibly important in any story. So there are my 3 main reasons for believing that you should, allow your player characters to kick the bucket. Do let me know if you have other ones. Let me know how player character death has affected the games that you've been in, and maybe rituals that you like to do to grieve the characters or anything else. I think this is one of the most fascinating topics in D&D. I don't think it makes for harder D&D. I don't think you have to be an old school player or, some masochist to want to do this. I just think it makes for good storytelling above all else. And really, that is what I'm trying to achieve when I'm running D&D games. But what do you think? It matters what you think, so let me know. Outside of that, I hope that you're doing well. I hope that you continue to do well. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. At some point, I'll put that earlier in the video, but not today, evidently. And you can check out some of my other videos. Let's go for... what should we go for? I don't know, 2 other videos. We'll see what the algorithm recommends, shall we? Enjoy, and until next time, goodbye.